the apocalyptic, I can't do that. Apocalyptical. Let's try again. All right. Hi, and welcome back to Maple History. I'm Christina Austin, and today I have my husband as my guest again.
Yet again.
Simon, he's here. Today will be a short little episode that's real purpose is to pave the way for the beginning of New France, Champlain, the fur trade, and the apocalyptical diseases that will wipe out like 30-50% of the Wendat people, and so on. So we're going to be talking about the Mourning Wars and what they are, because it's going to be important when we're talking about the way warfare changes between the Indigenous people as a result of the Europeans coming.
Okay.
I'm speaking mostly about the Wendat people for the most part, because that's what I've read about mostly. A little bit about the Haudenosaunee, because they were the main adversaries of the Wendat.
All right.
But since we're going to be talking about the Mourning Wars, it's a bit gross. Because torture is an important part of the Mourning Wars.
Yeah, and it's mourning, not like, morning, evening. It's like mourning
as in
you.
Grieving.
Yeah.
So to provide a little bit of balance, just because when we're talking about Indigenous people and kind of the intimacy of the brutality of warfare, I think we really need to talk about the scale of the brutality in European warfare and how enormous it is. So you have a shocking amount of intimacy and really creative tortures.
In like the Indigenous people?
For Indigenous people. And it's like a family event. I know public tortures were...
Family events, entertainment, right?
Yeah, but it wasn't up close and personal. It wasn't like in your living room.
Yeah, and family events, like they were entertainment in Europe. In Europe. Yeah.
Because they were a cautionary story. Like people would take their kids to a hanging and then go beat the shit out of them.
Yeah, so they'd remember it. Yeah.
Listen, some days my parenting feels a little off, but I ain't that. Anyways, so I want to zoom out and give a general picture of what we would view as extreme violence in Europe and how it's really about to kick off over there with the wars related to the Reformation. So there's going to be horrific massacres, tortures, and super high casualty wars happening all across Europe. Kind of about the same time. I'm talking about like the 15th century, 16th century.
Oh wait, is this a time of like Spanish Inquisition too?
I guess it's kind of about the same.
Yeah, that's also like famously like ruthless.
That's more of a Monty Python kind of.
Like, that's my Monty Python history.
No one expects the Spanish Inquisition kind of. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, we're talking about so we'll be talking about like not really talking about like the details of the war, but just kind of give a sense of what was happening over there and how it really did affect the day-to-day lives of regular people. It wasn't just short little wars of conquest where it's like like these are devastating wars.
Okay.
Partly related to ideology. Okay, the Mourning Wars. What were they? When Jessica was over and we were talking about the Wendat, and we did like a huge hour-plus long chat, and we talked about warfare. You're talking smashing people and arrows and blades. Everyone was very connected, and the family was very connected. And the reason that they had the Mourning Wars is because, yes, vengeance is part of it. That is part of why. Like if someone kills someone from your family, you want to go and kill. And there's this sense of rebalancing. Hostages could be adopted into the family. Like women and children could be adopted into the family.
Yeah.
And the men could be adopted. They kind of often were tortured into adoption. Yeah,
well, I was thinking about that. I was thinking it's much easier for me to imagine a child being like, these are your parents and they raise you and care for you and all that sort of stuff. Like, so I could see that becomes easy to grasp. But I think if you were a fully grown adult and you were previously fighting.
And you had a wife.
And you had a wife in your other tribe and all that sort of stuff. Like you had a family of your own.
Yeah.
The only way to get into that new group would be to be broken down.
Yeah.
Like broken by torture and psychological things.
So I didn't have this book when I talked to Jessica, and this would have been a great book to have. It's called Huron Wendat, The Heritage of the Circle by George Sioui, Sioui. So I hope I say that right. He talks about how they are a circular society, and whereas we white settlers would be like a linear society. And that also includes the passage of time.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is a circle. You're going to see them again.
Okay, yeah.
They're going to come back.
Mm-hmm.
So like when a baby dies,
Yeah.
they're buried on a pathway
Mm-hmm.
so that when a woman walks by,
The spirit can come back.
Yeah. This is a very short little summary of, and I'm going to quote here from The Heritage of the Circle here. Wendat's most fundamental sacred ideas, which are common to circle societies in general. So Wendats are one of them. So I assume Haudenosaunee would also be one of them, and maybe the Algonquin and Ojibwe.
But probably not all.
No, and I'm sure when we get to the West Coast, things are going to be different.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know about that yet. I haven't read the books. So we have seen that the Wendats understood the need for the presence of evil in the universe. For them, the world is neither good nor bad, nor should it be. They see the world in equilibrium, and as such, it becomes an object of admiration and veneration. Life functions in cycles. Time itself is circular and therefore has no real existence. No one feels the need to progress or evolve. And another basic notion in Wendat thought was that other entities are peoples, as are humans. So animal and vegetable kingdoms, stones, mountains, spirits are made of the same substance that we are. They are family and friends who support and succor us, and they have the right to our respect and consideration. So that's a very brief summary of the idea of the circle societies. It's hard to wrap your head around non-linear time thinking, because we think of moving forward, we age, we die. Okay. So yeah, the Mourning Wars, there'd be a lot of consideration about how and why you'd go into battle for the Mourning Wars. My understanding, if I may be misreading this, so your neighbor village, like there, like a murder could happen, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
people are always people.
Yeah.
Or like a neighboring nation, like Algonquin or one of the other kind of more northern ones that are not farmers, like the Wendat. They're friends, but they people fight.
Yeah.
So if something happens and someone gets killed, you would have to pay presents. Like you'd have to give gifts,
Okay.
or you're gonna fight.
Gotcha.
So for peace, it's better to do the presents, because
Mhm.
present gift giving came very easy to the Wendat people.
I feel like this is the same thing in many other cultures, right? Like
Yeah,
I remember
of course.
hearing
Of course,
about.
it's the freaking
Well,
it's the code of Hammurabi.
Yeah,
Like, it's-
exactly. Yeah.
It's
they
old. It's old school.
Yeah, they codified it. A son is worth like X dollars, or like cows or whatever it was.
Yeah. But if it's an enemy, when it's the Haudenosaunee, so if they're, say, Battle of the Seneca, they're never pitched battles per se. Like they would attack a palisaded village, they would attack an unpalisaded village, and that's going to be bad.
Mm-hmm.
But, you're talking max a couple hundred people getting killed, plus hostages. It's not about eliminating as many people as possible.
Mm-hmm.
It's about how many warriors you can capture,
Yeah.
because they're going to replace or assuage the grief by torture
Mm-hmm.
of the family that has lost their son or husband or just family member. And maybe they'll be like a little bit tortured, and then they get adopted,
Mm-hmm.
or they just get tortured and then they get told, well, you know what, starting tomorrow night, it's going to get bad.
Yeah.
And then they prepare themselves. They are ready.
Mm-hmm.
Like they have been ready. Like they have, all captured warriors would sing their war song
Mm-hmm.
all the way walking. They would sing the whole way,
Mm-hmm.
even after they've had their fingers bitten off or something like that.
Yeah.
It's shocking to us.
Yeah.
Because even if you were...
It's even shocking, like, to think that you wouldn't just be like super motivated to fight to the death.
Yes. That you would never
Like-
want to be taken alive.
Yeah.
That it is shocking to me. Like to compare, let's go Wars of the Roses,
Okay.
right? So you're talking Edward the Fourth, when he defeated Henry the Sixth. The Battle of Towton in 1461 was the deadliest on British soil.
Okay.
The estimates are between 30 and 50,000 dead
Wow. That's a lot
in
of people.
10 hours of fighting.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're like, these are This isn't,
They wouldn't even have cannons, would they? There's arrows and
swords,
pikes, lots of spears.
Pikes, yeah. Bludgeoning things.
Yep.
It'll
Hammers.
beat the brains out of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, for 10 hours.
Wow.
That's a lot of Englishmen dead.
30,000, just like up close and personal.
Yes.
Right?
So that is like they're trying to kill as many people as possible. That's the contrast that I want to like highlight. What is shocking to us is that women and children in a village, or women and children, who live near a monastery or something like that, and just, farmed, you would see a criminal or a heretic or something like that get killed. But you're not doing it. Ever. But whereas this is, the torture happened in the longhouse with the children there.
Yeah, right there.
And that is what is like, ooh, I don't love that. But then I think there's 30 to 50,000 people dead in one day.
Yeah. Right?
So it's like, oh, you're like, oh, you think people get really defensive and be like, oh, well, that's so uncivilized. And I'm like, well, is that civilized? Like the 50,000 dead civilized? I don't know. I don't think so.
It's hard to imagine the whole time. Everything smells bad.
Oh my God,
there's
just awful.
There's disease everywhere. The scale of the poverty and the scale of the like how cheap life is just across the board.
But not the life is not cheap though in Wendat community. It's not cheap. They are very purposeful, and that is a big difference. So it's good that you because it's not cheap. They will adopt a person. They wanted more people. One interesting thing when I was reading in this one, when he was talking about the St. Lawrence Iroquois, is that some of the reasons for battle, for fighting, was who gets the St. Lawrence Iroquois to bulk up their community numbers.
Oh,
they wanted them.
Yeah.
Right? Because they're being dispersed, but they're like, I want you dispersed over here. They're like, no, we want them. These are our family. So one other little thing that I noticed, I had read it in the Dispersed But Not Destroyed book by Catherine McGee LaBelle, but I didn't quite understand the word. So I had talked about the Iroquoian people. So that was a term that Bruce Trigger and William Fenton used to describe the people, because it's the Iroquoian language, and that's what the scholars have grouped these nations as, like the Haudenosaunee, the Wendat, and I think the neutral, and around there. Anyways, but Suey, he doesn't use that term. He uses the term Naduak.
Okay.
And I'm like, oh, of course. Of course they would have a term for like the types of people. So they're the Naduak people. So the Huron or the Wendat are Naduak people. The Haudenosaunee are Naduak people.
Well, it also makes perfect sense because Iroquois generally means snake. Right?
Yeah, so they wouldn't
call themselves, we speak the snake language.
Like, and saying like, in the Mi'kmaq, they had names for people, but one of them, it's not the real name because the Mi'kmaq, their word for basically funny talkers, like the reason we have the word barbarian is because Greeks, when they hear someone speaking not Greek, they're like, bar, bar, bar.
Oh.
So it's barbarian. So it's like blah, blah, blah.
It's like... It's like a racist thing.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, that's amazing.
Well, I mean,
bar.
Yeah. So they kind of did the same things. They're like these guys, and they name them. So, anyways,
it's like Joey Tribbiani and Friends speaking French.
Yeah. So anyway, so that is something that I've picked up. I'm like, okay, the Naduak people, they're not the Iroquoian people. I'm going to try and remember to adopt that word. Oh yeah. The other thing was that we really have to have an understanding of the depths of their beliefs, Europeans and Indigenous people, about how when you're reading stuff, when you're listening to something, you're like, I don't know about that. I don't know. Like, do they really believe? Like, I think they really do. In order for this to endure the torture of like horrific stuff with incredible stoicism, but also to do the brutality of warfare, the killing of children and women, and they would torture women, and I don't know if they torture children, but I hope not. I'm going to think no, because I don't want to think about that. Even older people, like, whereas we think, oh, well, yeah, women and children and the elderly, they're kind of in the sacred space.
Mm-hmm.
But were they in Europe? No, they weren't.
No.
When they went raiding into towns, and we're talking, I'm speaking specifically, like, if you're thinking like ancient, whatever, like that's, oh yeah, okay, then. But we're talking about like the
same time.
Our understanding of Christianity. And
the same time period that this was happening in North America, same, like similar stuff was happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a raiding a village.
Worse.
Or worse, yeah.
Yeah, because some people get really defensive about like, oh, well, the Europeans were more civilized. I'm like, well, I don't know. Yeah. I don't. I mean, is it our art was a little bit more elaborate and like writing? And I'm like, yeah, that is, honestly, I would say, yeah, that's civilized.
Yeah.
But we do contrast it with horrors beyond our imaginations. And it really gets bad with the Reformation that's coming. When that happens, the wars of religion that are coming are going to be appalling. Mm-hmm. So the Reformation really kicks off in 1517 with Martin Luther's 95 Theses.
Yeah.
That's kind of our little starting point. And then the slow burn of that starting, and the torture of people that was happening. Then you have the French Wars of Religion that last about 30 years. Included in that is St. Bartholomew's Day Massacre. Margaret of Valois and Henry of Navarre. Henry of Navarre was a Protestant, and she wanted to marry her daughter to him. And then shit got real bad, and a whole bunch of people got massacred over a couple of months all across France. But really, like, we're talking thousands of people in Paris, like that day, murdered brutally by their friends.
Oh, wow.
Or neighbors. And then it rippled across. And we're looking at 20,000 people killed. Like, these are like,
murdered?
These aren't soldiers.
Yeah. That's wild. I didn't know about this. So they're murdered by their friends.
Yeah.
How do you even coordinate that back then? Yelling.
No, I'm not kidding. That's what. So one of the noblemen got murdered, got thrown out the window, and then they started yelling, and they're like, "The king commands it. The king commands it." So then people are like, "Oh, the king commands us to start killing Protestants. Huguenots is what they call them." And then they started, and it just popped off.
And they just, oh wow, okay.
Yeah, for like a month or two.
Wow.
Super bad. They could either convert on site or be murdered.
Just murdered in the streets or in
the
houses.
Streets. They chained a bunch together and threw them in the river, like in the Seine. Yeah. It was super bad, like as bad as you can imagine.
Chained them to, like, very planned. Like, this is.
Oh no, they did. It was. Yeah. There was an episode of Not Just the Tudors, which is Susanna Lipscomb's podcast on part of History Hit Network. And she had someone come talk about the St. Bartholomew's Day Massacre. And it was so gross. Yeah. It was so gross. So anyways, if you look at it and you're like, oh, let's see how gross it can be, well, look that one up. So then you have, not long after the French Wars of Religion, things pop off in Germany and Prague, and you have the 30 Years' War.
Wait, just before this, there was like a 20 Years' War.
Well, that was just in France.
Okay, the French 20 Years' War, and this is like
this one is more international.
Okay,
and it kicked off in 1618. So a Catholic king was replaced by a Protestant king. It started when the Catholic side sent some ambassadors to Prague, and then you had a thing, and it was the defenestration of Prague.
Oh, geez. Okay.
And this is the third one, apparently. It's like this.
The third defenestration of Prague?
Yeah, there was other ones in different hundreds of years. They like to defenestrate people. So anyway, 1618, defenestration of Prague. And put that down into your bar trivia. There you go. Lock it in. Third. Was it the first, second, or third? It was the third.
Defenestration is the skinning, right?
No, chucking out a window.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Oh, what am I thinking of?
I don't know. Yeah. That's super bad. No, they just chucked that. They lived, though. They survived.
People lived getting chucked out of windows?
Yeah, these guys that got chucked out the window survived.
Okay, yeah.
So, but anyways.
Well, not all of them, I'm sure, but yeah.
No, these two. It was just two people got chucked out a window.
Oh, okay.
That's what it was.
Well, you said defenestration of Prague, and I assumed it was like
it wasn't
a lot
all
of
the people at Prague. No. It was like in Prague.
Okay.
And they got two ambassadors got chucked out the window. And that kicked off the 30 Years' War.
Oh, okay. I had it totally wrong. I was thinking that like it was a part of the war and they were just chucking people out of the window all over the place.
No, it's Prague.
Or actually, I had it even worse. For some reason in my head, I had defenestration meant like skinning, which was like, I was like, oh my God, that's really gross.
No, they didn't do that. Oh, they probably did. I don't know if they did that and whatever. But what did happen is 4.5 to 8 million people died.
Wow.
During this war,
Yeah.
mostly in Germany.
Was it active? Maybe you don't know this or
No,
not.
it was soldiers and civilians.
And was it also famine?
Yes. So starvation and murder of people and soldiers' death. So it was all of it.
Like any big war, like famines just are a part of it.
That is the world the Europeans are coming from.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're shocked at some torture. I'm like, okay.
Actually, yeah, there wouldn't be any there wouldn't be much famine involved at this scale. Right?
Not at the scale. I mean, there would be starvation, deaths. Every winter, there would be starvation deaths.
Yeah.
Like, yes, the young and the old will likely die.
Yeah.
But like, it wouldn't be a famine
because
it would be just leanness. Yeah. Okay. So those are the two worlds that are combining. I actually didn't talk much about the torture, which I think is good because we covered some of that. And actually, shit's going to really pop off with the Champlain stuff because he wrote about it a lot. And also the Recollet priests and obviously the Jesuit priests, they really get some detail in there. So it's kind of you're getting the first person accounts. We'll talk about the shocking sexual practices. I didn't even think I was being particularly prudish. I was just like, wow, that's a lot. It's some kinky ass shit.
Oh, okay.
And I'm like, I don't like that. I don't like that. But yeah, so we're talking about two very different ways of thinking, but also both have profound levels of violence, but also profess to be peace-loving.
Mm-hmm. Both, yeah.
They both do. Christians, whether you're Catholic or Protestant, you are a follower of the Prince of Peace and you are for peace. And then you do tens of thousands of people murdered. Mm-hmm. And the same thing. They're like, well, they want the peace. But then to satisfy their theological thought of replacing this person, assuaging this grief, reintegrating that person's soul into your family by renaming them or taking a child and giving them a name, and then that's a lot of violence that had to get that.
That doesn't sound like peace.
Yeah, they're all the same but different. Indigenous people are shocked at the idea that you would let people starve to death in the street when you had plenty of food. That is shocking, but it's also shocking to have your teenage children participate in the torture of a hostage.
Yeah.
I don't agree with that.
Yes. You're coming down against torture. Yeah.
I am, but I also really don't think that you should beat your Protestant neighbor to death on the streets of Paris. So, you know what? Everybody sucks.
Yeah.
So, anyways, that was about all I think I can cover today. Next up, we'll go into Champlain. That's what I'll do next.
It's a big topic.
It's huge.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to talking about the Mi'kmaq, the Acadia part. Like there was basically two colonies. And I think that's going to be really interesting to see the differences because you get a understanding of the differences of the indigenous cultures as well and how that kind of shaped the settler Indigenous relationship.
Yeah, I don't know much about the Acadians, like a little footnote stuff.
Yeah, because we were taught in English school, I think. And I think in New Brunswick, they have a lot more.
Probably.
in Quebec.
Yeah.
But that's later. Okay, so thank you, and like, subscribe, all that good stuff. I'm going to start doing some more TikTok stuff if you want to follow me. My TikTok is Maple History.
Oh, and we're going to start putting these on YouTube, which is apparently a huge missed opportunity that we've just not done yet.
All right. Thank you.